Hi, I'm James Mitchell, and I want to welcome you to this week's Oracle Outlook. This week, I'm doing a Lenormand card reading for the week starting April the 11th, 2016, so stay tuned. And here we are with the cards on the table, and the deck assisting me for this week's Oracle Outlook is the Dondorf Lenormand. And just as I do in every one of my weekly general readings, I'm going to take the deck in hand, and I'm going to shuffle the cards. And my question is always something to this extent: what do we need to know about the week ahead? And I'm asking in terms of like the energies of the week, what are the possibilities for the week, and what challenges could possibly show up for the week that we may be needing to have some awareness around. So I'm going to shuffle the cards one more time. Okay, I'm going to take the deck, I'm going to cut it. I'm going to put the cards back together. And now I'm going to do a line of 5, so I'm going to pull the top 5 cards from the deck. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to take a moment to see how they look in the view. Okay, so if you're no stranger to my line of 5 readings with the Lenormand, I always look to the card in the middle. Card always informs me as to what the central issue or the focus could be for the week, and we have the Rider. So the Rider is a card that can represent news or messages being delivered, and depending on the card surrounding it, it could be positive news. Generally speaking, the Rider is a card that represents positive news, but again, Lenormand is not read by single cards. All the cards in combination help to inform us more about each of the cards, so we have to look at all the cards surrounding the Rider. So, but the Rider typically represents news and messages being delivered. It can also be, now that I mentioned it, it could also be a visit or an arrival of something. And it can also be, in terms of a person, it can be a young man. Typically can represent like an eligible young man. So for some reason that phrase popped into my head. So again, news or messages, a visit or an arrival, and an eligible young man. So looking to the cards surrounding it for more information, we have, going from left to right, we have the Coffin, we have the Scythe, we have the Dog on the right, and the last card is the Moon. Okay, so what I usually do with a line of 5, I usually look to the cards that are immediately flanking the center card. So we have Scythe and Dog flanking the Rider. So looking at the Scythe card, Scythe can represent something happening quickly, something happening suddenly, something that's swift, fast. Could also represent something unexpected. It can represent a break, a disconnection, something being severed or split, because a scythe is a tool that cuts things. So I'm seeing that kind of energy. So it could be whatever the news or message is. It could be something that may come quickly, may come suddenly, may be unexpected. It may be some news or messages that may need an immediate response or some swift course of action needing to be taken with that. So that's the Scythe. On the other side, we have the Dog, and so the Dog is a card that can represent a friend. It could represent a companion. It could represent a partnership. Dog can represent help, support, and trust. So I always look at that as also too loyalty. You think of the idea of man's best friend with a dog, and so you think of loyalty and obedience and things of that nature. So, but my usually go-to for the Dog is something that's a friend, companion, partner, and with that it could be somebody who's friendly, helpful, supportive. So if we look at Scythe and Dog as a pair, We could have, the unexpected or sudden news from a friend. So it could be something that a friend is sending us. It could be the sudden or unexpected arrival or visit of a friend. So going with that, so some of us watching this video may have some sudden news pertaining to a friend this week. It could be like maybe news about a split or a break or a disconnection with a friend or involving a friend. And as a result, the friend may need some help or support. And, that kind of energy. So I'm seeing that it could be, a friend who's unexpectedly going through a difficult time and needing some help or assistance and support and communicating that to you. So it could be, as a result, someone watching this video may have the arrival of a friend. The friend may come to you, or you may go to the friend. If you look at the direction, the rider is traveling to the dog or towards the dog. So it could be you taking the measure to visit a friend. But it comes as a result of something unexpectedly happening. And it could be that we get more information from the outer cards. Here we have the coffin on the left, and we have the moon on the right. So coffin usually represents something ending, something being completed, and as a result of that, something being finalized. I always look at this card as an ending, a completion, something being finalized. So we have that on the coffin. With the moon card can represent something that is being recognized, because this card can represent recognition. It can also be someone's reputation. I tend to look at this as a career card, so I look at it as career and vocation. It can also be, just for the obvious, because Lenormand can be quite literal, the moon card could be representative of something that happens at night. So it could be, going with the coffin and the moon, it could be the end of a career, because going with the idea that coffin represents an ending. It could also be whatever this friend is going through that I touched on earlier. It could be, sometimes a coffin can represent illness. So it could be that you get news that a friend is ill, and you may get it at night. It may come to you at night. Going with the idea of this being the last card in the line could offer potential timing. So it could be, something that's coming to an end, but it's coming to an end at night. I'm looking at, in my mind, I'm seeing the image of, like, when they have a sale in stores and it says like closing tonight or something ends tonight. I'm seeing that. So it could be something coming to a close or something ending, but it comes at night. So, but I'm also seeing like maybe the end of a career, or, something changing with someone's career as well. So I'm seeing that. There's possibilities here. Now the next thing we could do is we could look at the first two cards. So we have coffin and we have scythe. And so again, going with the idea here that something is ending, or it could represent illness, because this part of the coffin is exposed. So it could be, somebody needing rest as a result of being ill, somebody having an issue dealing with the head. So I sometimes see this card as headaches. So because the top part, or the head part of the coffin, or the casket rather, is being exposed. So there's that. And then with the scythe, it could be something sudden, something unexpected, something that happens quickly or suddenly. So it could be, a sudden illness, or, if somebody experiences headaches, could be like a sudden headache. It could be that there's an illness that is going to lead to surgery, because this card, the scythe, is coming after this card. So we have experienced this first, and then this comes as a result. So it could be like an illness that requires surgery, or, a sudden illness, and as a result of that sudden illness, there's a need to take a swift course of action, and that would be having surgery. So it's almost like an illness leads to emergency surgery, and that could be the news that allows us to create space to offer help or support to someone else. So I'm seeing that as possible energy. And then on this side here, with the dog and the moon, here we are with the dog, a friend, partner, companion. Again, could also be about help, support, and trust, and loyalty. So with the moon card, it could be, again, that idea of like something being recognized, somebody having a reputation for something, someone's career. So I'm seeing this sometimes when we look at careers, I tend to look at the dog as a consultant or advisor. So it could be somebody's a career consultant or a career advisor. It could be that somebody's going to offer help and support or advice at night. Or it could be somebody's needing help and support or advice about their career or their reputation. That kind of energy. So let's say, I'm seeing a couple of things here. So let's say there's a need for someone to have an emergency surgery. So it could be like there's a question, or we're needing news about maybe the surgeon who's involved in that and what their reputation is for their career. So if they're like this big time specialist, let's say, then they could be well known because the moon card would represent having a reputation, or somebody wants to know more about them. And so looking at what's their career, how long have they been in practice, have they been awarded or recognized in their industry or in their community for the work that they do, and somebody's needing to look for that kind of information or guidance. So I'm seeing that kind of energy with that. So the last thing we can do is we can try and create meaning for the entire line, going from left to right in what I call forward narration. So it could be an illness that comes on quickly or suddenly or unexpectedly and requires immediate surgery, becomes news, breaking news. I always look at breaking news as like the idea of like you're watching a newscast, and then they break in with a special news report or a special update in the moment. So it could be, that's how the news comes. It comes as like breaking news or sudden news. And then as a result of getting that news or message, there is a visit or an arrival of a friend or a companion for help and support, overnight, or, help and support with work or someone's career or something of that nature. I'm going to go more with the moon card being something that takes place at night. So it could be like, you get someone gets the news about someone being sick and needing surgery. It comes as a shock. It comes suddenly, comes unexpectedly, and as a result, there may be a short commute, a short trip to see a friend at night. You make the trip and to spend the night maybe with a friend who may need help or support. To kind of maybe like maybe the partner of the person who's having surgery needs to have people around to offer help and support. So that's basically the gist that I'm getting of the line. Again, I'm going to say like there may be somebody who's dealing with an illness and may need some sort of sudden medical attention. I'm seeing in the form of a surgery perhaps, and then as a result of that, other people spread the news. The news travels fast, and offering help and support to help the person get through it, especially if it's going to be maybe an overnight thing or done at night. So I'm seeing that. It could also be too that, now that this just reminded me, sometimes the moon card can represent night, but it can also represent a month in time. If I go with the inset of the Eight of Hearts, the Eight of Hearts can represent a month in time, and then the symbol of the moon here can represent a full lunar cycle. So it could be that there may be a month dealing with this in terms of like at the end, maybe the recovery process is for a month, and then people spending or giving help and support over the course of a month. So I like that more so than just the overnight thing. So that would be how I would look at the line. The next thing we can do is we can look, because I already mentioned it with the Eight of Hearts, we can look at the playing cards and to see what are the dynamics that are influencing or can give us more information about the writer card. And so now I'm going to turn my attention to the playing card inserts that are on the cards. And so we have the 9 of diamonds on the coffin. We have the Jack of diamonds on the scythe. We have the 9 of hearts on the rider. We have 10 of hearts on the dog and 8 of hearts on the moon. So the first thing that jumps out at me is that we have 3 cards from the suit of hearts. Hearts for me can represent love and romance, but since this is a general reading, I'm going to go with the general idea of relationships, generally speaking. So it could be a romantic relationship, a love relationship, but it could just be a relationship generally speaking. And remember now, because we have the dog here, the dog is a card that can represent a friend, a partner, or a companion. So a friend, it could be the general relationship or the emotional relationship between friends, or it could be the emotional relationship between, a partner or companions. So that is that. And then while I'm at it, it could also be, too, going with the idea here about a friend or companion. The dog could actually be, a dog or some other domesticated animal, because the dog can represent a dog or a pet. So it could also be the relationship between a human companion and his or her animal companion. So I didn't want to leave that aspect out. So the other thing that jumps out at me here is that we have 2 cards from the suit of diamonds. Diamonds for me represent the material. So it could be, since we talked about the idea of illness in the previous segment, diamonds can represent physical well-being. It could also represent having anything to do with material resources. So we could look at career with the moon card. Career is something that's tied to resources and also to money. So those are some aspects of diamonds. But the other thing that strikes me that I find very interesting is that we have 2 cards from the same suit on one side here on the left with diamonds, and then 2 cards from the same suit on the other side of the central card from the suit of hearts. So it's like we have like one issue over here. So we have the issue of well-being or material resources on this side, and then on the other side we have the issue of relationships, generally speaking, and also 2 hearts represent domestic matters. So it could be something either that takes place under the roof of our home, under our roof, or it could be something that's close to home. I'm seeing in my head the logo from an old TV show, and I date myself because I'm very pop culture oriented. There was a show called Close to Home, so I'm seeing that the logo for that show in my head. So it could be, if it's not somebody's actual home, somebody knows a person that's close to home. So friends or people that we would consider close to home, people who we consider like family, but we don't live with them. So I'm seeing that as the part of the dynamic. So what I do with the dynamics is I look to the cards that first are on the left side, because this represents one side of the issue, going with the writer being the focus of the issue, which is about news or messages, remember. And then look to the cards on the other side of the issue. So we have a 9 with the 9 of diamonds, and the Jack is numbered for me at 11. So what I do is I take the numbers, and 9 and 11, add them together, and we have 20. So the 20th card in the deck is the garden card. And the garden card for me represents things having to do with something having to do with the public or something of a social nature. This card represents groups and communities. It can represent gathering places where people gather, either public places or social places, where people go to congregate just to be social with one another. So we have this idea here that there may be, going with the idea of the news may be something of a public nature, or something that's going to be talked about socially, or maybe being broadcast socially. Going with that whole idea, this card with the idea and the emphasis being on something social can be social media. So it could be we get the news through some social media channels, if not all of them, to some extent. So I'm seeing that. It could also be that the person or persons involved in whatever this news is could be of a public nature. So it could be somebody who has some public standing, some social standing, somebody who's in the public eye. So I'm seeing that. The other thing that could be factoring into this is that the garden being something that has to do with other people, could be that other people are tied to this, or other people are going to be affected by this news. It could be that other people are going to offer the help and support that I was talking about before, with the dog card being a card of help and support. Could be that there's going to be a group or a community, or maybe even a smaller group of people if it's something that's more personal. Maybe not so much public, but a group or a circle of people tied to a particular person or persons who are going to offer help and support that I was seeing before. So I'm seeing that as a possibility with the one side with garden. On the other side, we have the 10 of hearts with the dog and the 8 of hearts with the moon. And so here we have 10 and 8. And interestingly enough, that adds to 18, which is, again, the dog card. So the dog card is showing up in a different way. So it's reinforcing this idea, like it could be somebody who's a friend, somebody who's a partner, somebody who's a companion. It could be, the news could be about someone's friend, someone's partner, someone's companion. And if that's the case, then going with the whole idea here, if we take these cards now and put them one next to each other because they're the dynamics, or do it like this even because this is the central issue, the news, could be publicity about a friend, publicity about a partner, publicity about a companion, something of that nature. Somebody who is seen by the public as being friendly, helpful, or supportive, or somebody who's going to need the help and support of the public. So it could be like some of the news could be about, remember I said another aspect of the writer could be an eligible young man, so it could be an eligible young man or a young man and his partner. And so that could be, a heterosexual relationship or a homosexual relationship. Either way, it could be suggesting that there may be a relationship with somebody who's in the public eye, who may be, and may be tied to their partner or companion. So that would be the dog and the garden. So the final thing we can do here is that we can look at all the cards and add them across. So we have the 9 of diamonds, we have the jack, which is 11, we have the 9 of hearts for the rider, 10, and 8 with the moon. Okay, that gives us 47. And since there's a number over 36, which is how many cards are in the Lenormand deck, I'm going to take the 4 and the 7, add them together, and the total is 11. So the 11th card in the deck is the whip. And the whip is a card of conflict and strife. It can represent something that is repetitive in nature, so it happens again and again. Going with the idea of conflict and strife, sometimes this card can be about arguments, it could be about fights, it could be about heated exchange, it could be about debates. And so that could lend itself to saying, like, there may be news of some sort of argument or debate, or it could be there's just some sort of debate or argument that's being talked about in the news, going with the idea that writer is the news. That could escalate. Sometimes what happens is that most fights start on a verbal nature and then they escalate to something physical. So it could be we get news of some sort of debate, or it could be that we hear news about a fight that started as an argument and then got physical, and as a result of that somebody got hurt. Going with the idea here that these first two cards were talking about somebody's physical well-being, then it could be like as a result of an argument that turned into a fight, somebody was injured or hurt, and as a result of that they may be now in the hospital and needing emergency medical attention, and as a result of that there may be some public outcry about that. So I'm seeing that. Another thing that can happen here with the whip card is a card that can represent physical activity, and one of those physical activities can be sex. This is a casual sex card. So it could be that, going with the idea of somebody who's in the public eye or public standing, may either have some news or have some news being broadcasted that either one or two things, either they were cheating on their partner or companion, or that they were being cheated on by their partner or companion with someone else. So that could be, and there could be some sort of public outcry about that situation. And so I'm seeing that. And going with that whole idea, if it is a public person, let's just say a public person, then it could be as a result of that, or because of that, it could be the ending of the relationship, because remember now, the coffin is about something ending, and then the scythe is about a split, or something being severed, something being disconnected. So it could be that kind of energy, like as a result of that hitting the news, you know, one or two things, either because that happened and it's been made public, that happens as a result, the split or separation, or it could be that the news of the end or the split or the separation becomes public, and that the reason for the ending or the split was because of an affair. So, you know, there's a number of ways of playing that. But generally speaking, the whip is a card of conflict and strife. It's something that's repetitive. Now, if we're looking at the health-related condition, it could be that whatever this physical condition is, it's something that's repetitive. Like there's a reoccurrence of it. So it could be like something that was dealt with once and then it's reoccurred. And so now as a result of that, maybe this reoccurrence has led to the idea like, okay, now there may need to be some sort of surgery for that. So that is the whip, and that concludes looking at the line from the aspect or the perspective of the playing cards. So now in the next segment, what we'll do is we'll take a look at all the numbers on the cards, because Lenormand has three features for me. It has the central image, it has a playing card, and then the numerical value. And so what I do is I look at the numerical value for what I call the essence or the final line or the final message of the reading. And now taking a look at the numbers on the cards, coffin is 8, scythe is 10, rider is 1, dog is 18, and the moon is 32. And that gives us a total of 69. And again, we have a number over 36. So I'm going to take the 6 and the 9, add them together, and the total is 15. And the 15th card in the deck is bear. So now the bear, for me, represents power, strength, influence, and force. So I always tend to look at this as the boss card. So in light of the fact that we had the moon card here at the end, and the moon card for me is a card of career, it could be somebody who has a career or has a reputation for a position of authority. So it could be somebody who's a leader, somebody who's an influential person, something of that nature. Somebody, so that would fit the garden card here being a card of public standing if the person is a leader or a person who's an authority or authoritative figure. So I'm seeing that as a possibility. The other thing about the bear can represent protection, with the idea here of, you know, like the mama bear protecting her cub. So there is that kind of protective energy attached to the bear. So it could be somebody who is maybe trying to shield someone from something, trying to protect them from something. This news could be something like, you know, trying to protect or shield someone from. Especially if it's something that could potentially be made public, and somebody may be taking on the role or the energy of not wanting to have that put out there, and so trying to use their power influence to try and maybe kind of keep it under wraps, maybe with the coffin here, like, you know, keep it under wraps, because sometimes a coffin in this regard can be something that needs to be limited, restricted, or contained, or, you know, trying to put a lid on something or trying to shut it down. So I'm seeing those kinds of things. So it could be one or two things, like, you know, the idea here is somebody's trying to use their power or influence to try and keep some news under wraps. So I'm seeing that. So that could be some aspect of it, especially if it's a public person, and going with some of the ideas that I talked about in the previous segment, if it's like it's about an affair or about the end of a marriage, it could be like whatever that news could be about to damage someone's reputation or harm someone's career, looking at it from maybe a possible PR standpoint, especially if it's news that's not in the best light. It could be, somebody wanting to kind of keep that under wraps. Now, it could be somebody on the opposite side of the spectrum, could be, the idea of like, all press is good press. The idea of like it keeps you in the public eye, keeps people talking about you. It may create some sort of debate, even a debate going on, especially debates in social media, keeps the person who's being discussed out there in the public eye, especially if maybe they need a career boost, or something's going on with their career, or kind of rejuvenates their career, whatever. But some people are of the mind that all press is good press, so it could be something of that nature too. So going with the idea that bear could be tied to something health related, there are two things I see with bear. Bear could be about someone's diet. So it could be going with the idea here, like maybe this part of this illness or this medical condition could be food related or diet related, and as a result of that, there may be a need to eliminate, going with the scythe, some sort of foods from the person's diet. It could also be maybe there is a weight issue. Sometimes the bear for me can be about weight. So it could be like, how do we eliminate or how do we cut or reduce someone's weight? It could also be, and this is just popping out of me in the moment since I'm talking about food and weight, and if there is a medical procedure or a surgery of some kind, it could be, and I'm not a medical professional, so I don't know the specifics of it, but the idea of gastric bypass surgery is jumping out at me with the whole bear and scythe combination here. So there could be somebody who is going to undergo that, or somebody who has undergone it, and then maybe that's the public news that breaks or something of that nature. Somebody puts their story out there in a way maybe to help empower people, because the bear is a card about empowerment, going with the idea of power. So it could be somebody puts their story out there in a way to help empower people, to offer help and support for people who may be going through a similar issue having to do with food or having to do with weight, or having to make the decision to undergo gastric bypass. So that would be looking at it possibly from a physical well-being perspective. So this has been the Lenormand reading for the week for the Oracle Outlook. I am James Himm Mitchell. I'm signing off. And before I sign off, I want to thank you for joining me in this space and sharing this space here with me for this week's reading. And I look forward to sharing this space here with you again in the future in the next Oracle Outlook reading. So until then, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and until the next time we get together, take care.